You're watching Study with Sudhir. This is your digital classroom. My name is TS Sudhir. Moments. That's the supplementary reader for class 9 CBSE students for the English subject. And we're today going to be looking at the adventures of Toto, a story which is quite delightful in the manner in which it talks about a little monkey and written by Ruskin Bond. It's not a story which actually needs too much of explanation. Basically, it's almost like bedtime storytelling, and it talks about a grandfather. The story is told from the perspective of a little child, a grandson, and it talks about his grandfather and the monkey Toto, who he had bought from a Tonga driver, someone who drove a horse carriage. So, grandfather bought Toto from a Tonga driver for the, or a Tanga driver rather, for the sum of 5 rupees. The Tanga driver used to keep the little red monkey tied to a feeding trough, and the monkey looked so out of place there that the grandfather decided that he would add the little fellow to his private zoo. So what you learn immediately is that he has bought this little monkey, who is a little red monkey as is described. His name is Toto, and he has bought him for a price of 5 rupees. The amount is important because of what happens right at the end of the story, and the fact that the grandfather has his own private zoo. Normally that's not something which is allowed, but nevertheless he has his private zoo. Now he was a pretty monkey, we are told. His bright eyes sparkled with mischief beneath deep set eyebrows, as most monkeys are prone to be mischievous, and his teeth, which were pearly white, were very often displayed in a smile that frightened the life out of elderly Anglo-Indian ladies. So this particular paragraph is important because it gives you a description of the kind of person, of the kind of monkey that Toto is. But his hands looked dried up as though they had been pickled in the sun for many years, yet his fingers were quick and wicked. In the sense, it gives you a very vivid description, typical Ruskin Bond style of that little red monkey called Toto, and his tail, while adding to his good looks. And it says in brackets, grandfather believed a tail would add to anyone's good looks. So a sense of humor, a sense of editorialization in a sense by the young grandson. Also served as a third hand. The tail was also used in order to clutch something by Toto. He could use it to hang from a branch, and it was capable of scooping up any delicacy that might be out of the reach of his hands. Now, the next one is of course the character of the grandmother, who obviously would not be very happy with the arrival of this new pet of the grandfather. So they kept him a secret and kept him hidden in a particular place. But later on, when they went back to the place, they found that the walls, which had been covered with some kind of an ornamental paper, had been completely torn. This guy had gone completely berserk, destroying whatever was there in that little room where he had been kept away from the eyes of the grandmother. The peg in the wall had been wrenched from its socket, wrenched as in pulled apart from the socket, and my school blazer, which had been hanging there, was in shreds. So obviously something which obviously a monkey used to destruction, as most monkeys usually are. I wondered what grandmother would say, but grandfather did not worry. He seemed pleased with Toto's performance. So he is obviously someone who is very indulgent, and number two, also very fond of pets. He's clever. Given time, I'm sure he would have tied the torn pieces of your blazer into a rope and made his escape from the window. So he's almost very indulgent about the monkey and praises him in a sense. Now, he was transferred to a big cage, which is a little strange. So obviously, you realize that they have a fairly big house, that they can manage to keep a secret from the lady of the house. And there he had a tortoise, a pair of rabbits, a tame squirrel, and also a pet goat. So those are the animals in the private zoo of the grandfather. But the monkey would not allow any of those companions to sleep at night. So grandfather, who had to leave for Dehradun, next day to collect his pension in Saharanpur, decided to take him along. And the diagram, the illustration that you see is of Saharanpur railway station and what happens on the platform. Now he had put him inside a bag and zipped him, but what happens at Saharanpur railway station is that Toto manages to come out, and that's where the ticket collector, the ticket checker, sees him and says that you need to pay for his ticket also, assuming that it's a pet dog. But even though he tries to convince him that it's not a dog but a monkey, he says it will be described as a dog and therefore he will be charged for a ticket. So he says he was classified as a dog by the ticket collector, and 3 rupees was the sum handed over as his ticket fare. So that's what the incident which happens at the Saharanpur railway station. Even though the grandson has not traveled with him, this is something which the grandfather has subsequently related to the grandson, and that's why it's part of the story. Now, when Toto was finally accepted by grandmother, eventually his presence in the house is no longer a secret. He was given a comfortable home in the stable next to the horse, next to the family donkey called Nana. On Toto's first night in the stable, grandfather paid him a visit to see if he was comfortable, but obviously the donkey and the monkey don't quite get along. They never became friends, right? A great treat for Toto during the cold winter evenings was the large bowl of warm water given by him by grandmother for his bath. He would cunningly test the temperature, almost, because monkeys are known to see what the human beings do and copy exactly what they do. So just like human beings, in order to test the warmth of the water, how hot the water is, would kind of dip a finger. The same thing would be done by Toto. So in that sense, also another glimpse into the fact that he was an intelligent animal. A large kitchen kettle had been left on the fire to boil for tea, and Toto, finding himself with nothing better to do, decided to remove the lid. Finding the water just warm enough for a bath, he got in with his head sticking out from the open kettle. He obviously did not realize that it was hot. This was just fine for a while until the water began to boil, right? Toto then raised himself a little, but finding it cold outside, sat down again. He continued hopping up and down for some time until grandmother arrived and hauled him, half boiled, out of the kettle. So again, lots of instances to show the kind of life that he led inside that particular household, right? Because they believe that he was extremely mischievous. He was always tearing things to pieces. He would even tear a hole in the dress of any aunt who came anywhere near him. One day at lunchtime, a large dish of pulao stood in the center of the dining table. We entered the room to find Toto stuffing himself with rice. My grandmother screamed and Toto threw a plate at her. One of my aunts rushed forward and received a glass of water in the face. When grandfather arrived, Toto picked up the dish of pulao and made his exit through a window. We found him in the branches of the jackfruit tree, the dish still in his arm. So these are several instances which you should kind of number them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to kind of be able to relate what happened at what instance, because those could be the nature of the questions, or those you need to include in order to illustrate what kind of a mischievous animal, what kind of a mischievous monkey Toto was, right? Obviously, Toto was not the sort of pet we could keep for long. So finally, the realization dawns on the household, the family, that he was being extremely destructive, not fit to be part of a household. Even grandfather realized that we were not well-to-do and could not afford the frequent loss of dishes, clothes, curtains and wallpaper. So grandfather found the tanga driver and sold Toto back to him for only 3 rupees. So the price of the monkey is also depreciated. So when he bought it for 5 rupees, but he had to sell it back to the tanga driver for only 3 rupees. So that's the story of the adventures of Toto. So the adventures is what you need to focus on, as I said. So please number them 1 to 5 or 6, whatever be the number, and kind of be able to relate it, use phrases from the story, because that will show your familiarity with the text of Ruskin Bond in order to make your answers look that much better. So that's what, it's a very simple story. There are no larger themes around this story, barring the fact that here is a monkey who could not adjust himself to a very loving family, a loving home which was quite indulgent. Remember the fact that they had a private zoo, so they were used to life, spending their life with animals. But this particular monkey, because he was over mischievous, he was not able to fit into some kind of a discipline, even though the fact that the grandfather was actually very indulgent. He was willing to ignore the fact that he was very destructive, but finally things got a bit too far when they realized that they could no longer afford the kind of destruction, and as a result the financial loss that he was actually bringing to the family as a result of breaking and destroying a whole lot of things. So that is something which you need to know, but the basic stories will be about what happens in the story. So your familiarity with the text, with the story is extremely important, and that's what you really need to focus on. Why does the author say Toto was not the sort of pet we could keep for long? So you need to give the reason of what happens at the end, and then give back stories of what all he did, what all destruction he did, because of which the family realized that they could no longer keep him as a member of the private zoo. So that's the story, The Adventures of Toto. I hope you have understood it. We will be completing all the lessons of the English syllabus on Study with Sudhir. So keep tuning in for all the chapters from both the textbooks of the English syllabus for CBSE Class 9 students. Thank you very much for watching.